Hi everyone, this is Anna. I truly appreciate you stopping by. Today, in this video, I will share how I created these cards with backgrounds that look like tie-dyed fabric. This technique is called Emboss Resist. There are several tutorials out there that demonstrate this, but here I will show you how you can use this technique to selectively emboss areas that will create this look. I will be using the stamp set from Hero Arts called tie-dye. But you may have something similar in your stash that you can use to give the same effect. I took the stamps from the stamp set and mounted them onto acrylic blocks. Off camera, I stamped the images on a piece of scratch paper. This will be my design template. I will use a plain heavy white cardstock, a blending tool, and some Hero Arts dye inks. The template on the left will guide me on which colors to use for each image. The first color I'll use is the Hero Arts Lemon Drop ink. I will start off first with the biggest image. I took ink to paper and started blending in a circular motion, following the shape of the tie-dye image as closely as I can. This technique is very forgiving as perfect blending is not really a requirement. I wanted only some parts of the image to be yellow, so I kept referring back to the template to guide me on blending placement. Then I took creamsicle ink and started to add some of that on top of the yellow ink. Not much, but just enough for color variation. After that, I prepped the ink blended panel with an anti-static powder bag. Then I took the biggest tie-dyed image in the stamp set, inked it up with embossing ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and then stamped it onto the ink blended circle. I pressed the stamp down very firmly, lifted it, then sprinkled it generously with clear embossing powder. I took my heat gun onto the panel, started heating it from the back, then moving it to the front until the powder was good and melted. Then I took another image from the stamp set, inked it up with embossing ink, then stamped it onto another part of the panel. I sprinkled it with clear embossing powder, then repeated the process. The nice thing about this technique is that I can pick which parts of the panel will be a certain color. In this one, I wanted only certain parts to be yellow and orange. Here you can see the other areas of the panel which are stamped and embossed, trapping the color underneath. Before I started ink blending the next color, I decided to add more yellow to the embossed images. I continued to ink blend all around the panel, leaving some areas without color. Then I took some splash ink and applied it to the remaining yellow areas. I could have used green ink for this part of the technique, but I decided to use blue instead because 1. I like the variation of green tones when blue is ink blended on top of yellow, and 2. Minimize the number of inks I would use. I continued blending in the blue, not really taking care to blend fully, leaving some areas with a lighter green and some areas darker. I deliberately made the colors uneven to give it a more natural tie-dyed feel. Once I was satisfied with the ink blending, I took a clean cloth and began to rub off the excess ink that was sitting on top of the embossed images. Then I took the smallest image in the stamp set, added embossing ink, stamped it onto the inner part of the biggest image. I then sprinkled clear embossing powder and heat set it. I will then do the same to the rest of the ink blended areas. Here is what the fully embossed panel looks like. I took the Deep Ocean mini ink cube and then began swiping it direct to paper. I made sure to use a darker color in order to bring out the yellow and green colors that remain trapped underneath the embossing. I tried to avoid using complementary colors on top of the existing colors to avoid the background turning muddy. Now here comes the fun part of this technique. I took a clean, damp microfiber cloth and began wiping off the inks that were sitting on top of the embossed areas. The embossing resisted the blue ink, so I was able to wipe it off, revealing the colors that were trapped underneath. And this is what the finished background panel looks like. You can see how it looks so much like tie-dyed fabric. Here is my completed card. To create the matting for the ink blended panel, I ink smooshed the lemon drop and splash ink onto a piece of watercolor cardstock. I used that ink smooshed panel to mat and die cut the word Celebrate, which is from the Hero Arts Birthday Stampin' Cut XL. For the sentiment, "You're an oldie but a goodie," I stamped it first in white unicorn ink, then stamped it again in lemon drop ink. Then embossed it with clear embossing powder to give it a bit of dimension and shine. For the images on this card, I used a combination of raspberry jam, tangerine, creamsicle, and lemon drop. Then splash for the second layer. I did ink blend more of the raspberry jam, so when I applied Deep Ocean Blue on top of it, it created a purple background. The matting on this card and the sentiment, which is also from the Birthday Stampin' Cut, is an ink smooshed panel of raspberry jam and Deep Ocean. I hope I have inspired you to give this technique a try. I also have another Emboss Resist technique linked at the end of the video that you might want to check out. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Till next time, bye!